Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn topic. My name is Anneliese Kuemmerle, and I am a program associate and registered dietitian with Rutgers Cooperative Extension in Cape County. And today's topic is avoiding stress eating. And this presentation was originally made by Chris Sellers, who is our Cape County FC agent. Before we dive in, I'll talk a little bit about Cooperative Extension. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is a partnership between Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, the Board of County Commissioners of New Jersey, and the USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We are Rutgers' arm to local communities and have offices in counties throughout New Jersey. We offer cooperative extension services to support the community and deliver research-based information. We have 3 departments: agriculture and natural resources, 4-H youth development, and my department is family and community health sciences. At FCHS, we provide outreach about nutrition, chronic disease prevention, food safety, and overall wellness. We are an affirmative action, equal opportunity employer whose programs and materials are open to all. The objectives for today's presentation are going to be first, understanding what makes us stress eat. So we'll start by talking about the science behind stress eating and the foods that we sometimes choose to eat when we feel stressed. We'll then talk about some skills to avoid stress eating, and then finally, we'll talk about everyday techniques to help reduce overall stress and prevent stress eating. Our goal is to offer some tips and tricks to help manage stress in a way that does not involve food. And to be clear, before we start talking about stress eating, it's always important to remember to eat a regular, well-balanced meal. So please don't deprive yourself, and that will help you keep your overall lifestyle more balanced. Eating is a biological need for food, which we'll talk about. It keeps us healthy and strong. So when we have this discussion, think in terms of your overall eating patterns and habits and how stress might be causing you to eat when you are already full. Being mindful about what we are doing in all aspects of our lives helps us to keep a healthy balance. Most of us can probably think of a few things going on in our lives that make us feel stress. So let's talk about stress. What is stress? Let's zoom out and away from the things that are giving us stress and talk about what exactly stress is. Stress is a normal biological response to things that challenge us and that threaten our safety. It is a normal part of life. Feeling stress makes part of the brain flick the on switch for stress response. That part of the brain is called the HPA axis. In case anyone's wondering, it stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And when that stress switch is flicked on, our brain, hormone system, and nervous system work together to produce a series of specific responses in the body. The brain releases hormones that activate the sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system increases our heart rate, increases our blood pressure, increases our alertness, and also signals for the release of stored energy in the form of glucose and fat, so that our muscles and our brain have quick access to fuel to be able to respond to a stressor. This short-term stress response evolved to protect us and to help us quickly adapt and cope with an immediate and temporary threat. So it's designed to be switched on, and then it's designed to be switched off when the threat causing the stress has passed. So in the short term, our stress response can be really helpful. It gives us the adrenaline rush to quickly adapt and overcome a real threat. But once we do that, the brain flicks the off switch, which comes in the form of the parasympathetic nervous system. That's our rest and digest system. The parasympathetic nervous system counteracts that flight or fight stress response and helps us relax after an acute or temporary stress has passed. And when we are continually exposed to stressors over the long term, however, that HPA axis can stay switched on. And this is where we see some of the health effects of chronic stress. According to an article in the Health and Psychology Review, stress can influence our health in 2 ways, which are broken into direct and indirect categories. Stress can directly affect our health through biological pathways. Chronically activated stress response over time increases activity in the amygdala, it's another part of our brain, and increases the stress hormone cortisol. And this causes changes in the brain that can impair cognitive function and make it more difficult to learn, to remember, and to regulate our emotions. Cortisol also decreases immune function and increases inflammation. Chronic stress is linked to increased risk for mood disorders, hypertension, and heart disease. Cortisol also affects our metabolism. Remember that sending the fuel out part of stress response? And this makes it harder for our bodies to use insulin, which can increase the risk of diabetes. Cortisol can also lead to increased abdominal fat and increase the risk for metabolic syndrome. And these are just a few of the direct biological effects of stress on the body. And this list shows us that when we are under stress, it can be harder to maintain healthy habits, and it can be harder to make decisions that benefit our health. And we see that effect in the indirect category of the effect of stress on behavior pathways. I do want to say everyone is different. So how we each respond to stress is going to look different too. Some people may find themselves hungrier when they're stressed. Other people may eat way less when they are stressed. What we see from research on stress and food choices is that overall chronic stress is associated with a higher intake of what we call hyperpalatable foods. And these are those extra tasty, high sugar, high fat, high salt foods that give our brains a quick fix and trigger the reward pathways in the brain. And in a study with over 100,000 adults, people suffering from chronic stress had lower intake of fruits and vegetables. Researchers suggest that stress hormones play a role in this because stress hormones activate the brain's reward pathways and change oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin signaling in the brain. And these physiological changes make that hyperpalatable food feel more rewarding when we are going through stressful periods. So we may find ourselves reaching for these foods during times of stress. Now, our individual behaviors and choices add up over time and eventually become our habits. So we may be in the habit of reaching for a comfort food during times of stress. And when we look at stress through this framework of direct and indirect pathways, we not only see how stress impacts our physical health, but also our mental health. We also increase our understanding of how stress can contribute to the choices that we make when it comes to food. And I talk about this because cravings for comfort food when we are stressed are influenced by our biology and our neurochemistry, and it's not just a lack of willpower, as many of us may beat ourselves up over a lack of willpower. And I also bring this up because understanding this can be empowering for us. It allows us to be more analytical and more proactive and make small changes over time that support our health and well-being. My slide skipping is very delayed. So understanding stress eating helps us change our behavior. If we know about it, we can learn about it, we can do something about it. We saw why our brains crave hyperpalatable foods. And when we reach for them when we're stressed, we are giving ourselves a false sense of comfort. Once we get this false sense of comfort, our bodies crave it more and more, creating a compulsive behavior to eat more of these foods. So we end up in a feedback loop. The desire for comfort is the driving force, not necessarily physical hunger. And again, once we are aware of this, we can take steps to better cope with stress and to plan healthier habits. There are many reasons why we stress eat. As we talk about the various reasons for stress eating, try and take a moment to reflect and think about if this is something that's affecting you and what types of things you might be eating when you feel uncomfortable or stressed. Remember in the last slide, we talked about comfort as being a reason we may gravitate towards those hyperpalatable foods. And here are some more reasons. Many times we'll reach for something sugary because we're tired. We may not even realize that we are tired and reach for something sugary around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that afternoon slump. So recognizing that at a certain time of day, when you feel tired, you find yourself reaching for these types of things, that can help you plan and acknowledge and address it in a different way. So in this situation, having a nutrient-dense food like an apple and peanut butter, that's likely going to be better than going to the vending machine for a candy bar. Sure, the candy bar is giving us immediate gratitude. It might wake us up a little bit and it might make you less hungry, but in a little while, you may feel lackluster and hungry again. Whereas that apple and peanut butter combo, that's going to give you sustainable energy over a longer period of time because it has more nutrients. You're also nourishing yourself with fiber, vitamin C, zinc, protein, healthy fats. So you can pause and ask yourself, are you hungry? Are we reaching for something quick, maybe sugary, to get a little bump of fuel? Take a minute and check in with your body for signs of hunger. Do you feel weak? Are you having difficulty concentrating? Do you hear a noise in your stomach because it's growling? Are you maybe a little irritable? If you are really hungry after doing that mindfulness check, and you can say, yes, I am hungry, then having a good choice available to you and having something that will nourish and support your health versus those empty calorie foods is one small step that we can take to make overall better food choices. Taking a minute to really see if you're actually hungry will not only help you also recognize the cues of being hungry, but will also give you time to, again, pause and think about a healthier choice. Oftentimes, we may find ourselves depriving ourselves or trying to hold out until you are hungry, and this isn't helpful. When we are hungry, truly hungry, we may have a hard time making a good choice about what to eat, and we can find ourselves making a poor choice based on the fact that we're starving, right? We want to eat something and move on with the day. So if you are hungry, please stop and eat. If you check in with yourself and you find that you aren't actually hungry, maybe we're a little bored or a little upset, then we can think about things to help redirect our activity to a different behavior. And we'll talk about that in a little while. And finally, do you eat when you feel sad or anxious? Are you trying to comfort yourself in some way or recreate a feeling of belonging through a food? Generally speaking, happy times with family and friends involves sharing a meal. Birthday parties, anniversaries, get-togethers in our social networks, that involves eating with loved ones. And if we are having a stressful day or we're a little sad, we may try to recreate that feeling of happiness and belonging through food and being comforted by food. So once again, taking a minute to check in with yourself, especially if you are gravitating towards one of those hyperpalative foods, and ask yourself what you're feeling. If you decide you are really hungry, again, of course, please eat something nourishing. And if we find that we're sad or anxious, opting for a different behavior like calling a loved one to directly connect with them, or maybe going for a walk, are some ideas for you. And this is part of this pausing, thinking, listening, and planning are the steps that we can take to check in with our cravings when we find that we're reaching for a hyper-palliative, quick pick-me-up food. Researchers describe two main reasons why we eat. The first is called homeostatic eating, and that is eating because we need energy. I call it the eat to live reason that we seek out food. Our stomachs are empty. They signal the brain to release hormones that tell us to seek and eat food. And then as we're eating, there are other hormones in the body that help tell our brains when we are full and tell our brains to stop eating. The second main reason why we eat, according to research, is called hedonic eating. And hedonic eating is the live to eat reason, I say, because food tastes good, right? It does, and it activates our reward centers in our brain. This type of eating is we eat even though our body doesn't necessarily need energy. So an example of hedonic eating are wanting a cookie because you smell them baking in the oven, or reaching for a bag of chips because we're settling down to relax in front of the TV, or eating dessert after you've finished a full meal. And hedonic eating is influenced by the brain's reward center. Both of these types of eating are completely normal. Food is meant to nourish us physically, of course, but it's also how we experience pleasure and part of how we connect with loved ones, friends, and our traditions. So eating for pleasure is part of normal behavior, and it is part of being human. We can find ourselves getting into trouble with it, though, when we're consistently eating more than what our bodies need for energy, and when eating replaces other ways to cope with stress. And we saw how stress can make those hyperpalatable foods feel more rewarding and influence our food choices. So when we feel like reaching for a hyperpalatable snack, we can check in with ourselves and go through this think, listen, plan process. First, we're going to think about what we're doing and ask ourselves if what we are doing is leading to a feeling. Just like we did on the last slide, we're going to ask ourselves if we are truly hungry or if maybe we're feeling something else that is leading us to want to eat. So try to take a pause when we're rifling through the cabinet looking for something sugary, fatty, or salty to eat, and ask yourself if you're stressed, is it time to eat? When was the last time you ate? When will I eat again? The next step is to listen to your body's answer. So we just want to take a moment and listen to our body's cues. What are your hunger signals? Again, they're going to differ from person to person. How do you feel hungry? Do you get lightheaded? Does your stomach growl? And this can help you. Are you already full? Taking care of our body's needs is critical, right? We only get one body to live in. We have to learn to listen to it. Our bodies send natural cues to us when we are hungry for that homeostatic eat to live reason. We might, again, have a growling stomach. We might feel ourselves gradually get hungrier over time, feel lightheaded, have low energy, have a slight headache. Of course, having just talked about some ways that chronic stress can make it harder to tell if we're actually hungry, because some of these are also, we may have these sensations when we're feeling stressed. So this isn't just about willpower. Again, when we are listening to our body, we're just pausing and giving ourselves the chance to reflect and to take some cues, collect some cues. One way to, again, assess if you are truly hungry is to ask yourself when you ate last. Was it a few hours ago? Did you maybe skip a meal? Was your last meal or snack missing something that your body needs, like a protein, a fiber, a healthy carbohydrate, a healthy fat? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then you're more likely to be hungry for that first homeostatic eat to live reason. Lastly, we can take a moment in our thought pause and make a plan, and that will help us redirect our behavior. Of course, again, if you are hungry, please, for a healthy snack or meal, but perhaps you are finding that you aren't truly hungry. And in that situation, maybe do something that would bring you joy or help you relax to help you feel less stressed. Having a plan and a routine can help us make better choices when we check in with ourselves about stress eating. First, think of some alternative activities that you can switch to if after you listen to your body, you find you aren't actually hungry. When you listen to your body and hunger cues and decide, okay, I'm not actually hungry, then avoiding the stress eating and the desire to have those hyperpalatable foods can take a few distraction moves. You can start with a glass of water. If it's not mealtime and we're feeling hungry, it could just be that we're thirsty. So try drinking a glass of water and see if that helps. Another tactic is to try to wait 10 minutes if you're not really hungry. Putting off stress eating for 10 minutes may make it go away, it could pass, or it could also just give you a little buffer time to find another way to cope with the stress that you are feeling. If you decide to eat, then taking out a portion of the food that you're going to eat and then putting the rest of the bag or plate away can help keep you on track with your portion sizes. And I would say we can eat too much of even healthy food. The amount of food is just as important as the food itself. So try portioning it out beforehand to help keep you on track. Physical activity is another great distraction move. Moving and doing something like going for even a quick 10-minute walk or a bike ride can actually help with your overall stress level. Regular exercise has been shown to improve brain health, to improve memory and cognitive function. Exercise can also help decrease stress. When we exercise, we actually spike our body's stress response. So it seems counterintuitive, but when we are done exercising, our body recovers from that acute stress. And this helps us to become more resilient over time and help improve how our body manages stress levels in general. So after exercise, stress hormones like cortisol and epinephrine decrease. And in an article from the American Psychological Association, they explain that exercise gives our bodies a chance to practice dealing with stress and to communicate more effectively to respond to stress. Taking a meditation break is another idea. Earlier, we talked about how stress makes our brains turn on that sympathetic nervous system, and that when we are chronically stressed, the brain has a harder time switching off that sympathetic nervous system and moving into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. Some studies have shown that mindfulness meditation can increase activity of the parasympathetic nervous system and reduce perceived stress and anxiety. Other studies have shown that meditation can lower heart rate and blood pressure and also decrease cortisol levels. And because there are many different types of meditation and mindfulness exercises, the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health notes that we need more research about the specific clinical effects of mindfulness exercises. But overall, they acknowledge that meditation and mindfulness may have health benefits and may help improve quality of life. And part of our plan, the first part, is to plan something nutritious. When we're planning to avoid stress eating, we have to have healthy choices available to us so that we grab and go those healthy choices. First step is to plan meals that include all 5 food groups at every meal. Eating balanced meals can help stop you from loading up on high-calorie foods that may be full of sugar and salt, because we're already full from the good stuff. The 5 food groups will help keep you full longer, and also following a diet pattern that is rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein helps prevent chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. They're also, all 5 food groups are going to give us all of the nutrition that we need to fuel better workouts and just feel better overall. When we're choosing foods that are whole and minimally processed, we are taking in more nutrition in fewer calories, and that can help keep you, again, full and satisfied, but without going over your calorie needs. And that can help support healthy weight. So make sure you're eating whole foods, minimally processed foods. Again, we're looking at fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, and this will help you to avoid processed foods, which are, again, high in calories. And we're still going to be watching the portion sizes of those foods too. Another tip is to make sure you eat before you go to the grocery store to food shop. Being hungry, being short on time in the grocery store, that can make grocery shopping way more stressful. So having a plan before you go to the grocery store can help reduce the stress of grocery shopping. Trying to eat before you go to the store means that you're going into the grocery store with a full stomach and less likely to impulse buy those hyper palatable, high sugar, high fat, high salt processed foods. Help you support good purchasing choices. And when we are in the grocery store, sticking to the outside of the store can help keep us on track for buying minimally processed whole foods. The aisles at either end of the store and the back are full of whole foods. Usually we walk in, the produce is going to be right in the first outside aisle. We then will wander past the bread and grain area as we're looping around the outside. And then in the back of the store, that's where we'll traditionally find meat and dairy. So shopping the outside, one, it cuts down the number of aisles you have to walk down in the store, which makes your shopping trip a little bit more efficient. But it also cuts down on our exposure to those processed hyper-palatable foods. So planning nutritious meal for the plan for the week, that can help assist you when you take that time to think, to listen, and plan. Your plan is already in place and you already have healthy options at your fingertips. The next step is to plan something delicious. We want, again, talking about homeostatic and hedonic eating. Eating food is a pleasurable, enjoyable experience, I hope, for all of us. We want to make food that feeds our soul, food that appeals to that hedonic appetite. And there are so many flavor profiles that we can play with in the kitchen, so many herbs and spices and aromatics that we can add to our food to make it delicious and satisfying. So it can help us to find the time to appreciate what we're eating and appreciate how it was prepared, especially if you're cooking for yourself. Honor your time and effort. Make meals that hit sensory points that help keep you full, that make you feel happy with what you're eating. Having a good array of textures in a meal can also help with that. We want something nice and crunchy, like some fresh veggies. We can add some creaminess with substituting low-fat Greek yogurt for sour cream to help give that creaminess and fewer calories. And then the last step is to try to have more than one color of food, right? We eat with our eyes first, and having a nice colorful plate can help make you excited about your meal and excited about all the vibrant nutrients that are on your plate that are going to fulfill you and nourish you. If you're having a white potato as your starch, try an orange or green vegetable with it. Meals that are flavorful, that have different textures, and that look good can help trigger our senses to feel less stressed and can help make you feel more fulfilled at the same time. Some other ideas for healthy swaps are, again, if you find yourself reaching for some candy in the afternoon as a quick pick-me-up, swap it out for some fresh fruit. It is July in New Jersey. We have so many choices. I am very excited about the peaches and the blueberries and the plums. We could enjoy chocolate-covered strawberries to get the satisfaction of chocolate, but also we're getting all those nutrients in the berry, the vitamin C, the ellagic acid. So setting some time aside to plan and maybe prep up some fruit and veggies to have on hand as a snack and to go along with meals to make putting a meal together at the end of a long workday easier. We want to make cooking less stressful. And here are some tips for becoming a mindful eater. Mindful eating techniques can help support avoiding stress eating. Mindfulness is what we have discussed to a degree because that is what we are doing when we are taking that pause and we are thinking, we are listening, and we are planning. So to practice becoming a mindful eater, when we are sitting down to a meal, try to make the meal about eating in the present moment. Make the meal the activity. So don't watch TV, put your phone somewhere, don't look at the computer while you're eating, just sit and be. Eat and enjoy the crunch of the raw veggie you added for some texture or the flavor of a fresh herb or a spice that you've added, and try to taste different ingredients in the meal. Maybe you added some ginger or some garlic. Think about those flavors. See if you can smell them, taste them. Enjoy the taste and texture of your food. Other tips for becoming a mindful eater include, again, learning about your hunger cues and listening to your body so that we are practicing eating when we are truly hungry instead of when we are feeling a feel. Eating to nourish yourself, again, that planning to have those healthy options available and ready for you. We want to be picking tasty food that makes us feel nourished, makes us feel good, and we can even take a moment to enjoy the surroundings when we're eating. Take in who we're eating with. And then when we are feeling full, stop eating. Set the fork down. Enjoy a conversation if you're sharing a meal with someone. Enjoy the company that you have with you. And if you are taking a solo self-care meal, just enjoy feeling rested and nourished. So it's about practicing being in the moment. There is a mindfulness activity that we have. For the sake of time, I will skip it for today, but I'll send information out for anyone after the presentation. There are many, many available mindfulness activities and ways to de-stress that are free. We have mindfulness presentations on our Wellness Wednesday webpage and on our FCHS Cape May County YouTube channel. Taking some time to ground yourself and your thoughts and your body can help you. Again, we're getting to the root of the issue behind the stress eating, and that is the stress. So these are short mindfulness activities, can be done anytime and anywhere to help ease your mind and relax your body and encourage those rest and digest processes. Thank you very much, everyone, for spending your lunch with us. We have also shared on the screen on the right a survey that we are doing here in Cape May County. And we're trying to find out what people think about strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that are available for older adults in Cape May County. We are doing a community needs assessment to help make Cape May County a more age-friendly place. So we would love your input. If you scan the QR code on the right, that's on the flyer, you can fill out your survey and help make your voice heard and give your feedback to us. Our next Lunch and Learn will be on September 1st at 12:30, and I'll be talking about food labels. So I want to thank everyone, wish you all a great day. I hope everybody eat something delicious today and takes a moment to de-stress.